Thank you everyone for attending today's 30-minute Wednesday webinar. My name is Mike. I am a systems engineer with Variphy and I am your host. I am joined today by Victor Verba. Today he will be presenting an overview of DID management in Variphy 12.2. But first, I'd like to mention our upcoming house party on October 27th. We had a blast this summer with the block party, and now we're going to take it inside with the house party. We'll be giving away over $5,000 in prizes, live product demos, Q&A, customer success stories. We'll take a deep dive into some CDR reporting, and we'll go over our future product roadmap. You can register for the event at variphy.com/party. All right, so let's get started and move on to the agenda. Today, we'll get started with an overview of our company and what we do. Then we'll jump into a demo where Vic will give an in-depth presentation on DID management in version 12.2. 12.2 is not available yet. We're getting ready to start beta testing towards the end of this month with a general release sometime after that. After the demo, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the QA panel in the bottom right of your screen. That's not the standard chat panel. There should be a separate Q&A panel in the bottom corner. After Q&A, we'll go ahead and reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So make sure you stay until the end to see if you've won. Okay, quick overview of Variphy. We are the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting, call analytics, customizable dashboards, UCCX real-time wallboard reporting and analytics, phone control, macros and broadcast, change management, as-built reporting, DN, DID, and dial plan management. We have a few different solutions available, but today we are going to focus on the DN, DID, and dial plan management solution. Before we get started, Variphy now offers Ninja Enhanced Consulting Services, or NECS. What is NECS? Well, it's when one of our system engineers, like Vic or myself, will engage remotely on a one-on-one basis to provide additional consulting services. It can be anything like reporting, dashboard configuration, or system monitoring. This provides a dedicated SE or system engineer to you. We do all the heavy lifting. If someone needs a report, they contact us and we'll create the report for them. If you want any additional information, please let one of us know or speak with your account manager, and they'd be more than happy to go over our consulting services more in depth. With all that said, I want to thank everyone for attending, and I'm going to pass the ball to Victor. Let's dig into DID management in version 12.2.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike.
Let me make you presenter.
All right, let me go ahead and share out my screen. So let's go ahead and take a look into DID management, specifically as it relates to version 12.2. So anybody that's familiar with our DID management, the purpose behind DID management is to really help eliminate a lot of that manual legwork that takes place within the organization to manage your DIDs, manage your DNs, but also try to keep track of all that information. One of the biggest things that we find is that, yes, the information's floating around out there in some spreadsheets. It's supposed to get updated. Things get updated wrong. They don't get updated at all. And then every 6 months or so, somebody's got to spend a day or two trying to shore up multiple spreadsheets to determine what DIDs are in use, who they're associated to, are these people even with the company anymore, things like that. So the idea behind DID management is to take all that manual work out of your hands, so you don't have to maintain a bunch of spreadsheets that are floating around in the network and use a centralized interface to be able to go ahead and manage that information. Now, first thing about DN management, though, or DID management, is DIDs are not in your call manager. If you're familiar with Variphy, the way that we like to function is we like to make you do as little as humanly possible. So in order to do that, we read your call manager. So we Axel query your call manager to pull things like DNs, DIDs, first names, last names, all that fun information that's stored in your call manager, but also floating around on spreadsheets and other places. But again, your DIDs are not in your call manager. So in order to configure DID management, we do need to know what your DID blocks are, because that information can't be pulled from your CUCM. What can be pulled is how those DIDs are actually being used and what they're associated to, and if they're being used at all based on the DNs that are in your call manager. So let's go ahead and jump into it. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start off by creating a DID site. So a DID site, think of as a bucket. It is a bucket that I'm going to go ahead and put my DIDs into. So for the purpose of this example, we're going to strictly focus really around 12.2 in the use of the international DID. That is new to 12.2, but conceptually, whether you're building something international or you're building US, it's really going to all be the same. So first thing first, let's go ahead and create a DID site. Again, this is really just a bucket that we're going to use to put our blocks of DIDs in. So we'll just call this, our EMEA site. So here's our European, Middle Eastern, Africa location. We can give it a description. We can put some addresses in here. I can create a specific site for maybe, EMEA UK, and I can have different EMEA locations. Again, these are really just buckets. So I'm going to save this. We'll create an EMEA UK, and now we have a site. So now that we have this site, we need to go ahead and add some DIDs to this site. So for that, we need to add our DID blocks. So all I'm doing is popping over to this guy. I have no blocks currently configured, but I am going to go over here and click Create DID Block. You can also import blocks of DIDs, which we'll get to in a moment. So let's create a DID block. And for this particular example, again, we're going to focus in on EMEA. This is a UK site. So I'm going to go ahead and add a Bristol site. So if I've got a Bristol location, I need to be able to go ahead and associate my DIDs. I'm going to add my site here. So now in my DID block, it's associated to my EMEA UK site, and I could add some description information or provider or circuit and trunk information in here as well. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop down to the numbers. So this is going to be a little bit new if you have an older version of Variphy. So previously, we did not have the option to go ahead and select various countries. This is where 12.2 comes in, because now what we have is a list of all the available countries to be able to go ahead and add your DID blocks into. Nice thing about Variphy is when we are creating this, we are also going to be doing some formatting for those numbers. You'll see that when we run some reports where you're actually going to get the proper formatting based on the number format and the location that you're going to go ahead and run reports on. Now that I've picked my site, I know I'm going to go ahead and build a UK site. I'm going to build my Bristol site because I named it that. We have to add our number ranges. And this is where Call Manager falls short, because your DID blocks are not in there, but Variphy does need to know what your blocks are. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our DID blocks directly into the Variphy system. So I'm going to go ahead and choose 117, 101, 1000. So in this case, I'm choosing a block of 1000, and I'm going to go all the way to 1100. So we're just going to go ahead and add a block to 1100. Paste that guy, and we'll just say 100 or 100. So I'm basically adding a block of DIDs that my company has. Now, I also have the ability to add exclusions. So let's say I have this great block over here. My DNs are 1000 through 1100 here, but maybe there's certain ones I don't have in here. I can always go ahead and add some exclusions and say, yeah, I have all of these, but you know what, maybe there's 10 of them that I didn't get. So maybe I don't have 10 through, I don't know, we'll say 20. And those do not fall under my DID range. Some other company bought those before we got involved. So you can always add exclusions in there, and then when you're running your reports, we'll exclude those from your reports altogether. Other reasons for exclusions are, you know what, maybe I have these numbers, but somehow they're associated to some other site, and I really don't want them falling under my Bristol location. A lot of times we hear, you know, hey, I inherited this call manager, I inherited this mess, I don't know why these DID blocks are like this, but they are. So you may be able to add an exclusion for some DIDs so they do not appear when I'm running reports on my Bristol site, but maybe they appear when I'm running a report under, I don't know why, but maybe a Cambridge site or something like that. So I'm just adding some general exclusions to say these are not part of my DID range for this particular block. But the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is, now that Variphy knows what your block of DIDs are, we need to tell Variphy how to associate those DIDs to the DNs in your call manager. And this is where the flexibility and the power comes behind Variphy, is because you're not having to worry about, oh, I've got some spreadsheet out there, the DIDs and the DNs don't match up. You know, people have left the company. We're going to go ahead and do that math for you. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying my DID matches the last 4 digits of my DN. And that's how we're going to go ahead and associate any of your DIDs to your DN based on the last 4 digits. So, you know, I've got a 1000 extension within my cluster. So now we're going to go ahead and look for the full phone number, match that 1000 extension, and say, hey, this is either an active, inactive, or available DID based on the information you have in your call manager. And of course, you can always use the E164 prefix if you use E164, and you can also select any particular route partition if you want to get specific regarding the route partitions for, say, my Bristol location. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select any route, so any particular partition. Within the screen, you could also add some additional mapping extensions. So let's say, for example, I have, well, we'll just pick on one of these guys. Let's say, for example, I have this DID here, but it doesn't follow my 4-digit pattern. For some reason, whoever created it, it maps over to 5555. You can absolutely add exceptions. Also, the nice thing about exceptions are a lot of times we get into environments, they're like, oh, we don't have a block of DIDs. They're all over the board. You know, we've got a bunch of spreadsheets. Nice thing about that is this is importable. So if you are in a situation where you don't really have blocks, or you've got some really extreme blocks, like maybe 5 over here and 2 over here, and you know something way out there, you can absolutely add exceptions to pinpoint map certain DID numbers to certain DNs. And again, that's also importable, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at that in a minute. So for the purpose of this one, pretty straightforward. We name our block. We associate it to our EMEA site. I tell the system, these are the DIDs in my block, and this is how I'm going to associate those DIDs over to the DNs. Now you'll notice this option here for site code prefixes. A lot of times we'll get into a situation where people have office codes. In other words, the DN within the call manager is maybe a 4-digit number, but it's prefixed by a 123, and 123 means it's this office. Well, that's great, because I can absolutely create a block that says this is this office name. I could add this site code in here, and now we'll incorporate that site code into that 4-digit matching. And we're going to take a look at that in a little bit if we have some time as well. So now, very quickly, I've added my DID block. I've added an exclusion here so that I don't have these particular numbers, and I've added how I'm going to match those DIDs over to my DNs, and we're going to give this guy a quick save. So now I've got my Bristol location, I've got my sites, I got my blocks. We're going to head over to the DID management, and we're going to pick our site, our EMEA site, and we have one block in here. As soon as you select that block, it's going to tell you the DIDs that you have available within that block. And we're going to just do a general search. So in this case, I don't have a ton in here. I've only got about 100. So I'm just going to go ahead and just punch in 4 X's. Now I can show available DIDs, inactive, or active. So for right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just focus in on the active and inactive, because that's going to show how we relate those DIDs back to your call manager. So what we're doing here is we go out to that call manager. We know the last 4 digits of that DID are going to match the DN. So we go out to your call manager and we say, hey, what extensions do we have in the CUCM that are active out of this particular range? So I can see I've got my 1000 extension that is active. It's associated over to this device over here, and I'm able to see all the information without having to worry about a spreadsheet or anything that I have to maintain of the true active DIDs that I have in my system. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pop back over to my DID block, and I'm going to take some of those exclusions out, and let's see if we have some inactive DNs in here. So for that, I'm just going to click Configure, pop over here, and pop over to my DIDs, and let's remove this exclusion here and save. And if I pop over to DN Management, I'm just going to click View Results, and let's see if we can focus in on anything that we have that's inactive. So I do have one inactive DN, and that fell under my exclusion. So you can see that exclusion completely omits it. So now I have this inactive unassigned DN over here, directory. So what is an inactive or unassigned DN or DID? Why is it inactive? So the way that we determine activity is based on the actual directory number. So if you log into your call manager and you go to the directory management, you're going to be able to see the active or inactive checkbox. So here I'm in my call manager. I have 1010. If I go to my call manager and I go to my call routing, and I have my directory numbers. So if I look up 1010, what I'll see in my call manager is that I've got 1010 in there. There is no partition, no other information. And if I actually edit this guy, what you're going to see is active. So this extension here is not active in my call manager, and that's what we're keying off of to be able to determine an active or inactive DN. So it's very possible that you could have something that's not active that's associated to devices, or something that is active and not associated to any devices at all. If I turn this guy active right now and saved, which I'm not going to do, this isn't my call manager, this is a lab. I don't want to have cause anybody else grief. Then you would quickly be able to see that this is an active DN, but you wouldn't see any device descriptions or anything associated to it. All right, so long and short, that's how you would add a DID or a DID block. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Now that I have my EMEA site, I can add multiple blocks. Let's say I wanted to add a Cambridge block, I could go ahead and do that, or even different sites. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is the actual DID import. So import's a powerful utility because a lot of the people have these things floating around in their environments. It may not be 100% up to date, but that's what we're here for. We're not looking for your extension association. We're just looking for your DIDs, and then we're going to do the extension association for you. So let's go ahead and switch a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and switch right over to importing DIDs. So when we import DIDs, we can download a CSV template. This is going to give us a template that we can use to build an import, or if you already have something floating in your environment, you'll be able to go ahead and utilize these same fields or these same headers to bring in your old information. Sometimes it's just a copy and paste, or you could take your existing spreadsheet and add some column headers to it, and we'll go ahead and use that as an import. I definitely prefer you to urge you to use the template because it is going to have the necessary headers and names in it. But let's talk about these fields here. So we can import both North American dialing plans as well as non-North American plans, but they do have to be in separate imports. There are many countries out there that can also have a lead one, like the US. And we can't make a differentiation between a country that has a lead one and the US. So as you see when we go through this import, if I do have North American numbering plan with non-North American numbering plan, we would have to break those into separate spreadsheets. But if you have a whole spreadsheet full of non-North American plans, we will do the blocks for you. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. So the main field that you need in this spreadsheet is this guy, DID number. If you have ranges, that's great. We can use those too. The CUCM DM'd field here is strictly for exceptions. Remember I had shown you I can add an exception of say 5555, and that'll go ahead and say, hey, this particular DID maps to this oddball extension. So CUCM DN is specifically for that. Just adding the exceptions. Route partition. If you have a particular route partition you would like these to be associated to, you can absolutely add that. It does have to match identically to your call manager. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Also, CUCM cluster. If you have multiple clusters, you can add the cluster directly into the spreadsheet. Again, that cluster does have to match identically what the Variphy cluster name is. All right. So let's go ahead and get started and kind of walk through an import. So the first thing we're going to do is let's do an import. Let's call this guy. Let's do Cambridge. So I know they're in the UK. It's going to start with 44, so I'm adding the 44 country code. I'm going to add the international dialing code or the location code. And then let's say I'm going to add 532600. And for this demonstration, actually for this block, what I'm going to go ahead and do is show you how we can import both, whether you're using just a list of your DIDs, but also at the same time you can import a range. So I'm going to expand this guy a little bit just so we can see, and I'm going to pop this guy down here, and I'm going to fill in that series. So now I'm just saying, hey, this is a list of my DID numbers. Now we had talked about a little bit being able to use a range. So I'm going to expand this one more, and we're going to say, oh, let's change this up a little bit. We're going to go to 20, and then I'll take this guy, and right here I'm going to say, we'll say 40. So what we're doing here is, one, we have a contiguous range here, but it breaks. So I don't have 14 through 20. However, I've got 20 through 40, but you know what? I have those separated in multiple columns, and that's absolutely okay in a single spreadsheet. Variphy is going to deal with it. What you're going to see here is Variphy will actually do the math, and it will make this one contiguous block with exclusions. Nice thing about that is, again, those exclusions, you never have to worry about putting them in. We're going to go ahead and do the math for you. Same thing if, you know what, maybe I didn't have this guy. Maybe for some reason I didn't have number 6. That's okay. We're going to go ahead and do the math for you. If you've got a spreadsheet out there that has a bunch of hyphens in it or brackets or anything like that, again, that's okay. We're going to strip those out for you. We're just basically looking at the numbers, and we're going to bring all that in for you. We're going to do all the math, and we're going to create the various blocks for you. So now that we've got a singular block over here, and it is singular. It's singular because our dialing patterns and our locations are all the same, and I'm going to give you a really good example of that. So one of the things I'm going to go ahead and pick on is we're going to pick on a block in, let's see, we'll stick with the UK. So there is a block, let's say 441291 421000. This is actually one block, and this is a location in Shire Newton, United Kingdom. All right. I know that because I was researching it. But the reason I'm picking on this guy is you'll notice this particular pattern here. This is specific to a region within the UK. And if I add this block here, and we'll fill this guy, what I can do is I can add another region. Variphy is also going to automatically determine that it is a new region based on the dialing pattern. So if we take a look at these, 1291 is one particular region in the UK, and 1297 is another region within the UK. What this is going to do is Variphy is smart enough to go ahead and recognize that those dialing patterns do not match the same region, and it will go ahead and create a different block for you. So let's go ahead and add that. And, you know, just for giggles, we're going to go ahead and throw an exception in there so we can see what that looks like. Now that we've got our spreadsheet, and again, this may be a spreadsheet that you have floating around already. It may be all over the board. Like I said, you may have some contiguous ranges like this. You may just have a spreadsheet that's filled with multiple ranges. It doesn't make a difference. Variphy is going to be able to do that math for you and break those up into the various blocks for your site. So now that we have this, I'm going to give this spreadsheet a save, close it out. Excel is going to ask me to save it again because it does that, and I don't know why. But now that we've got our block, we've got our spreadsheet floating around out there. This is probably something you have floating around on your network already, being manually updated, manually maintained. But we're going to show you how you can just bring that right in. So now instead of creating a new block, I'm going to import my DID block. You'll notice I had said in the beginning is that the North American numbering plan versus non-North American numbering plan has to be different. I cannot put North America in the same spreadsheet that I'm putting an international one because some of those dialing patterns are very similar to North America. In other words, starting with a 1, and we cannot differentiate whether, you know, it was a call to New York or a DID in New York or a DID, you know, somewhere in Mongolia. And I use Mongolia because they actually have a lead one. But so I'm going to select other because I'm importing non-international ones. I'm going to browse over to my file here. And where did I save that? There it is. And we're going to import this guy. I'm going to put him into my UK cluster. Now you ask, or my UK site. Now what if I have multiple sites in a single spreadsheet? That's okay. After the system is imported, you can absolutely go ahead and change those sites, and I'll show you that in a second. Next thing it's going to do, it's going to ask me what cluster I want to go ahead and bring these into. And I can do, again, how do I want to associate those DIDs to my DNs? I'm going to pick the last 4 digits. If I have a site code, I can absolutely enter that. I can pick a particular route partition for all of these, or it can go directly off the spreadsheet if I've entered them in my spreadsheet. In this case, I'm going to choose any route partition. Now, we're going to go ahead and run import. It's going to give us a nice little summary of what we did. So here we can see we've got the UK. All right. And if I go ahead and bring up my spreadsheet here, give me 1 second. Let me pull this guy up. We're going to get to see all the information that we put in. Change these guys to a number field here. And there we have our first block, our 1123, and here's our 1123. And you'll notice it went all the way to 2640 in a single block. We did not break this up. And that's why we have 7 exclusions there, is because we were missing 7 extensions and our number 6 up there. So that's why. But the nice thing about that is it is smart enough to go ahead and break that up into a single block. Now let's take a look at the one we were being a little trickier with. So here are two different regions within the UK that have very similar dialing patterns, 1291 and 1297. But again, Variphy was smart enough to say, hey, this is a different region. The 1291 fits into 1291. 197 is a completely different block because it is a completely different region within the UK, and it also brought back our exclusion, and there we can see our mapped DN. So if I close this out, what it's going to do is it's going to bring me back to my DID blocks. You notice some of these guys are green and some of these are not. Basically what the green is, it's telling you these are the blocks that you just imported. Now, keep in mind, I'm only dealing with a few different blocks over here. But if I have 10, 15, or 20 different blocks on my screen here, and I just imported, let's say, 3, it's nice to be able to quickly see which ones I imported, because maybe I need to make a change. Maybe I imported them into a site that this one's supposed to go into a different site. Or perhaps I needed to add a office code into this particular site. I can go ahead and do that and very easily identify those based on what's green. So it's basically just a nice way to be able to identify those blocks. But if we take a look at these guys, so if I edit this one, this is the one that we have here with our exclusions because we skipped 17 through 19. And if I take a look at my numbers here, you can see we've automatically added those exclusions. There was the 2606 that I removed, and here's the 1614 through 619. So we automatically took care of that for you. So nice thing about that is when you have those spreadsheets over there already, Variphy is going to go ahead and handle those blocks. It's going to add the contiguous blocks, but it's also smart enough to recognize the different regional codes within your site to be able to go ahead and create the exclusions or create the number tags. And if we scroll down to our 1297 guy here, we have 5555 and 1297. If we take a look at this guy, you'll see that we have our 555 exclusion. And if we go back and run any kind of DN or DID management report on any of those sites, we can go ahead and see some information. And I brought back just, there we go. And now we're seeing our contiguous block. Here is our 1002, which was our exclusion over to 555. This one here is reserved for Bob, so we are not assigning this one. Nice thing about this is although we have the description in here that we're pulling directly from the device. So if I look at 1002, we'll see, and it's in there somewhere. I think it was 1002. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, it's 555 because I did the exception. Let me go back. And there we have the description in the device is reserved for Bob. But you don't necessarily have to lean on that. We do offer something called tagging. So let's say I have a series or a block that I don't want to be used. Maybe I'm going to be bringing up a new call manager. I'm saving those for a particular site. You could also go through and put custom tags. Custom tags are also filterable. So I can tag this and say, hey, reserved for Bob. What that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and tag this. Now, I can tag an entire block of DNs and say, hey, these are all reserved for Bob. And then I can go ahead and take a look and specifically report on ones that are reserved for Bob. So, hey, with that, I want to thank everybody for attending with us today. I hope I was able to shed a little light on some of the new features and just how to run, some general imports and bring in some DIDs. Again, one of the nice things about Variphy is once we get those DIDs or import that list of DIDs that you have, we're going to do the math for you and pull that information out of Call Manager. You no longer have to manually maintain that list of DIDs and DNs, and which I see all the time. People have to end up spend several days shoring them up every 6 months because they just don't get updated on time. So, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to you, buddy.
Excellent. Great job, Vic. Let me take the ball back. All right. Move that out of the way. There we go. All right. Next up, time for some Q&A. If anyone has any questions, go ahead. Feel free to submit them at this time. I think there's one I saw come through. Vic, yeah, one question. Why do some of the extensions you show not have a device?
Sure. So much like in our call manager here, when we look at any of these devices or we search any of these directory numbers, a directory number, like I said, it could be out there, but it doesn't necessarily have to have a device associated to it. So you can have an active directory number with no call associated to it. So we will look at those directory numbers. We will look at the devices, but if there are no devices available, then we're not going to be able to report it. So that device information is pulled directly from the association within your call manager.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. All right. Any other last second Q&A questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. Then let's jump to the winner of our Amazon gift card. The winner of today's Amazon gift card is Jackie Shepper. Congratulations, Jackie.
Yay, Jackie.
Yay. We'll have your account manager reach out to you soon. And then also, before we go, don't forget to sign up for our house party, $5,000 in prizes, live demos, Q&A, product deep dives. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We do live webinars every Wednesday. Our next webinar is September 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Matt and Dan will go over a new feature that will be included in Verify 12.2, custom labels. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great rest of your day.